Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeff Rumberg, Managing Partner of MetricNet, and today I'm going to be discussing the unique metrics of AI in the contact center. Now, many of you know me, but I don't know all of you, so let me start with a brief introduction. I've been in the industry now for more than 3 decades. I'm a co-founder and the current managing partner of MetricNet. We're an organization that focuses on benchmarking for contact centers and technical support organizations. I was fortunate enough a number of years ago to win the Ron Munn's Lifetime Achievement Award. I've been consistently recognized as one of HDI and ICMI's top 25 thought leaders. And I wrote a book on benchmarking, a hands-on guide to competitive benchmarking. I started the first contact center benchmarking consortium back then, 1990s. I called it the Call Center Benchmarking Consortium. It was the first syndicated benchmark for call center professionals. Along the way, in addition to founding the Verity Group, I sold that to Gartner, became a vice president in charge of Gartner's global benchmarking practice for a number of years before striking out on my own again to found MetricNet. So I was at Gartner for a number of years. I've also had the opportunity to publish more than 100 white papers on contact centers and technical support. I've worked with more than half of the Global 2000, the largest 2,000 organizations worldwide. I've worked in virtually every vertical sector, from insurance to hospitality, government to non-government organizations, or charities, if you will, nonprofit organizations. I was the former instructor for the ICMI and HDI metrics courses. In fact, I wrote those courses, and I speak on a regular basis. I'm a keynote speaker at various events around the world, sometimes related to benchmarking, sometimes related to customer support, customer experience, sometimes related to technical support. But it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for joining me. I know your time is valuable, and I intend to make this as insightful an experience for you as I possibly can. Now, everything you see and hear today in my presentation is empirical in nature. And what I mean by that is that the data and insights that I'm presenting are based on our contact center benchmarking database, more than 4,000 contact center benchmarks, a database that covers more than 50 countries worldwide. We track more than 70 metrics, everything from cost per contact and customer satisfaction to first contact resolution rate and mean time to resolve. And we've also created a taxonomy of almost 120 industry best practices that cover practices related to strategy, contact center strategy, human resource management, contact handling processes and procedures, technology, the discipline of performance measurement and management, and finally, a discipline that we call stakeholder communication. How do you effectively communicate with key stakeholders, not just your customers in a phone or chat interaction, but also key stakeholders within your enterprise? So everything you see today is empirical in nature. It's based on what we have observed. It's not theoretical. It's not academic. We're presenting to you what we see in the industry day in and day out, and what we have identified as being common success factors from those contact centers that achieve world-class performance. I think it's useful to start with a paradigm for what AI is. And there's a lot of different ways we can think about artificial intelligence. But one way is to think about a spectrum of AI-like capabilities There are the less complex capabilities that somewhat mimic human behavior. These would include things like self-help, self-service, where a customer goes to a database or a knowledge base and they type in a natural language query and they get one or more knowledge articles that are intended to help them answer their question or resolve their particular issue. Some would not consider that AI, but for the sake of this particular paradigm, I'm going to call that the least complex form of AI because it sort of mimics human expertise. Now, as we move to the right and we become more complex, we have things like automated password resets, voice and chat bots, which are underrated technologies, but very mature, very cost-effective. And we have clients in this industry where more than 50% of their inbound contact volume is handled by voice and chat bots without any intervention from agents. So they can be very effective in terms of reducing your total cost of ownership and giving customers a channel choice. In other words, they can choose to work with a voice bot or a chat bot. Sometimes they don't even know that they're dealing with a voice bot or a chat bot. Now, moving further to the right on the complexity spectrum, we have, and these are just examples. I realize that some of them would come from banking industry or the insurance industry, for example, but they're not meant to be industry specific. They are just examples. So loan origination, for example, that historically was done entirely in person or over the phone, and there was no involvement whatsoever of AI algorithms. But increasingly what we're saying is that loan origination for consumer loans, for example, lines of credit, home mortgages, an increasing amount of that is being handled by AI. Now, the whole thing, as far as I know, on loan origination is not handled by AI unless they are personal loans, securitized loans, lines of credit. Those are being handled entirely by AI. When it comes to larger purchases like the purchase of a business or the purchase of a home, there still typically is some human intervention, but we're finding that loan origination is being increasingly automated with voice and chat bots. Likewise, insurance claims were historically handled completely by a human agent, a claims expert, but increasingly we're moving towards 100% resolution of claims using artificial intelligence. Once again, mostly voice and chat bots, but other AI machine learning tools as well. Currently, there's still some human intervention. Some insurance companies have 100% human intervention on insurance claims, but others are down to 10, 12, 14% human intervention, meaning that the majority of the claim is handled by AI. Then we would have complex troubleshooting. This might be troubleshooting of a device, could be a computer, could be a printer, could be a phone, could be a piece of machinery, for example. Or it might be an application, trying to troubleshoot, as I did yesterday. I spent a fair amount of time on the phone with Microsoft Office support, trying to troubleshoot Excel. For some reason, it stopped working for me, which was quite interesting. I've never had that happen before. All the other Office 365 applications were working, but Excel stopped working on me. So I was working most of the time with a chat bot, later a voice bot, but eventually a human had to intervene to help get me across the finish line in terms of getting that resolved. I would consider that a complex troubleshoot, although Excel is a well-known application in the Microsoft suite of products. This particular issue baffled me, kept me baffled for almost a full day, but I eventually got it resolved through a combination of voice and chatbots and eventually a human expert who intervened. And then finally, on the far right, we have these self-correcting feedback loops where the AI learns something on every interaction with a customer and uses that information to improve their support, to improve their product, to improve their interactions with the customer. The goal here is to get to zero touch, which is the same thing as saying an agentless resolution. That's an aspirational goal. Nobody will ever get to zero touch. Nobody will ever get to 100% agentless resolution. But much like during the 1990s, there was something called 100% quality. Later, we had something called zero defects. Nobody ever got to 100% quality. Nobody ever got to zero defects, but they were good aspirational goals that you could strive towards. My best estimate is that we will get to 90% zero touch, 90% agentless resolution, probably within the next 10 years. So that's the goal. As you approach the goal, there will be some diminishing returns where you get to 80% or 90% zero touch and agentless, and it simply will not make sense to invest anymore in AI technologies that get you from 90 to 95% or 90 to 98%. That's typically how these technologies work. But this is one way of thinking about AI and how it will automate tasks from the least complex, things like self-help, self-service, to the most complex, which would be complex troubleshooting, and then providing feedback for products and services and support by learning. In other words, the AI learns from itself and becomes ever more effective over time. So we define zero touch as being a resolution without any intervention from an agent, an analyst, or a technician. That could be true in non-technical support contact centers as well as technical support contact centers. The alternative is that a customer avoids a contact altogether because that issue has been designed out of the process. So if customers are having common issues, for example, with an application or with a product, you can engineer away the source of those issues or products. When it comes to technical support, this is known as problem management. It's really just root cause analysis, where the idea is that you look at what's driving these contacts and you eliminate them from a root cause perspective. But zero touch is the idea of getting a resolution without any intervention from a contact center agent. Now, the goal in doing this and the motivation for doing this is to give customers channel choice. Now, again, there are times when a customer doesn't even know they're talking to a bot or doesn't know they're chatting with a bot. But some of them, if given a choice, would prefer to deal with a voice bot or a chat bot. So it gives them channel choice. But ultimately, because these are labor-intensive processes, having voice and channel bots or having any AI technology will reduce your costs and will do so dramatically over time. Now, you don't have to sacrifice the quality of the customer experience. You don't have to sacrifice your CSAT or your Net Promoter Score in doing that. You can actually improve your customer satisfaction. Channel choice alone has the effect of improving customer satisfaction. But if customers also have a good experience in a channel, an agentless channel, their CSAT, their Net Promoter Score, their customer effort scores are going to improve. And then, of course, you want to minimize customer effort, CES, customer effort score, and you want to minimize resolution time because customers are sensitive to resolution time. So these are the broad goals of zero touch. Now, it shouldn't be a surprise that for a labor-intensive function like contact centers, there's a lot of focus on minimizing the labor component of contact centers because that's the majority of your cost. If we look at a pie chart of cost in a typical contact center, more than half of the cost is related to agents or analysts or technicians. Another 18% would be your non-agent labor. This would be your supervisors, your team leads, your workforce schedulers, your QA, QC professionals, and your trainers. So that's 70% of your total cost is labor-based. And then the other 30% would be overhead, things like your office space, your insurance, your travel, your training, your office supplies, and your SaaS software licenses for your contact center tools. So it's a labor-based model. And historically, whether in farming, agriculture, manufacturing, or any other labor-intensive activity, intelligent people and creative people and entrepreneurs have asked themselves, how do we minimize this and take what human labor does and make it better and faster and cheaper by substituting technology for the human labor? We saw this in agriculture. It happened over 200 years, roughly from 1700 to 1900, or even the year 2000. Agriculture was largely automated, and during that period of time, we saw a 100-fold increase in the amount of farmable land worldwide and a 99% decrease in the number of personnel involved in farming. So we had a 2 order of magnitude increase in farmland and a 2 order of magnitude decrease in labor, for a total of 4 orders of magnitude. That's the effect that the Industrial Revolution had on farming. And now the effect that AI, drones, for example, for seeding and fertilizing crops, that's the effect that AI has had on agriculture. In manufacturing, on the left, what we have is an assembly line at GM from the 1960s. And on the right, we have an assembly line from GM in the 2000s, not even the 2010s. This was in the 2000s, so 20 years ago, where there's really no labor on the assembly line anymore. What we have are automated welders, in other words, welding bots, assembly bots, painting bots, inspection bots, and the labor is actually not shown in that picture on the right-hand side. The labor is behind safety glass, looking at computers and directing the bots what to do and making micro adjustments pretty much continuously. So the laborers on the left have been replaced by bots on the right. Same thing is happening now in service and support, whether it's non-technical service support, i.e. contact centers, or technical service and support, which would be service desks, desktop support, field services, for example. So I don't think anybody is surprised by this anymore, but this is what's happening, is that a labor-intensive function has become ripe for automation. We now have the tools that can mimic human reasoning and human behavior, and in some cases, they are better than human reasoning and human behavior, and they are replacing the millions of people worldwide that work in contact centers and millions of people worldwide that are working in technical support as well. So it's only natural that this transformation would happen. Now, if we look at historically the labor-based contact center model, there are hundreds of metrics that were used in that contact center model. Here are some of the more common metrics. Now, there are literally hundreds of metrics when it comes to contact centers, but these are the roughly 20 metrics that we would use when we benchmark a contact center. We've organized them into this taxonomy. We have cost and quality metrics, productivity, agent metrics, service level, and contact handling metrics. Again, these are metrics that we would use when we benchmark a contact center. It's not an all-inclusive list, but these are very common metrics. Most contact centers will track these metrics. However, in an AI environment, other metrics begin to take on importance. They are not completely different than these metrics. There is some overlap, as you will see. After all, the title of my talk is The Emerging Metrics of AI for Contact Centers. And so we want to talk about what these metrics look like. So the emerging metrics of AI for contact centers, again, you'll see some overlap between this page and the prior page, roughly 20% overlap. But this new set of metrics allows you to understand how well and how effectively your AI is working in delivering service to your customers. So the cost metrics, instead of cost per contact, cost per minute of handle time, we look at cost per customer per month, and we look at cost per unit of sales or dollar of sales. The volume metrics would be contacts per customer per month, agent-assisted contacts avoided, and your agentless resolution rate. Channel mix is very important. You want to know if you're deflecting away from the agent-assisted channels. So we would have live voice, live chat, email, and web submit. Those are agent-assisted channels. The non-agent-assisted or the AI channels would be the voice bot, chat bot, self-help, and your overall zero-touch containment rate. On quality, we still care about customer satisfaction and first contact resolution rate and net promoter score. But we care about it by channel. We want to know for voice and chat bots, what do the quality metrics look like? For agent assist, we want to know what the quality metrics look like. For self-help, we want to know what they look like. And for email and web submitted contacts, we want to know what the quality metrics look like. So it's no longer good enough to look at a total quality metric for your contact center. We want to look at quality by channel. The service level metrics, instead of just ASA and first contact resolution rate, we want to look at mean time to respond for the live channels, which would be your voice, your live chat, your web submitted tickets, and your email submitted tickets. And then for business case, historically, contact centers have not been great about looking at return on investment. And ROI is measured for two things. One, what is the ROI of your contact center? And secondly, what is the ROI of your technology investments in the contact center? So the ROI for a contact center might sound like a strange metric if you're not producing revenue. So if you're not selling anything in your contact center, if you're, say, a customer service contact center for a bank or an insurance company or anything else, how do you measure ROI? Well, since you're not selling anything, you can still look at the economic value that you create for your customers. How do you create positive word of mouth referrals, repeat business, land and expand? That is growing business with an existing customer. And then lifetime customer value, which measures the lifetime. If I'm a cell phone company, I want to know if you're spending, $1,000 per year on your subscription plan, and we keep you for 9 years. That's $9,000. That's your lifetime customer value. In an environment where the quality of service, we've been able to demonstrate this in the banking industry, the cell phone industry, the internet service provider industry, the airline industry, we've been able to demonstrate that quality of service offered to customers in the customer support channel does have an impact on word of mouth referrals, repeat business, lifetime customer value, and also product count per customer. So you can measure ROI even for a non-revenue producing contact center. But we also want to look at the ROI of your technology investment. So if you make an investment in a voice bot or a chat bot or a machine learning tool, you want to know what that investment produced in terms of ROI. So ROI refers to both ROI of the contact center as well as ROI of the investments that you make in that contact center. So what is the impact of zero touch? All of these metrics are moving in the right direction. Blue arrow simply means it moves down, but still in the right direction. Green arrows means it moves up, but still in the right direction. So we wanted to use green and blue instead of yellow and red, or green and yellow, or blue and red, because green and blue kind of denote positive performance. So for cost, we would expect your cost metrics to go down, and they do. Your cost per dollar of sales, your cost per customer per month. On contacts, your contacts per user per month should be going down. Your agent-assisted contacts avoided should go up, and your agentless resolution rate should go up. On channel mix, your live channels of voice, chat, email, web submit should go down, while your agentless channels of voice bot, chat bot, self-help should go up, and your zero touch containment rate, which is the percentage of contacts that go through the zero-touch channels, that should also go up. On quality, you should not sacrifice your CSAT, your Net Promoter Score, your Customer Effort Score, or your FCR for the sake of reducing your costs using AI. You don't have to. So CSAT and FCR should go up. Net Promoter Score should increase. Your time to respond should go down. Your time to resolve should go down. And your ROI for both the contact center overall and your technology investments should increase. So these are the directions that you can expect these AI metrics to move as you implement your AI technologies and if you are successful with your AI technology implementations. Now let's look at some metrics, some benchmarks for one particular industry. You can probably figure out what the industry is. I actually took this from a recent benchmark. We literally finished this benchmark yesterday. This chart appeared in our client's benchmark. The reason I'm not mentioning the industry is because the data is so new. It hasn't been published yet, and it's ultimately up to that client of ours if they want to publish this information. But we did get permission to present this on an anonymous basis. There were a total of 27 in their benchmarking peer group, all from their vertical market. They wanted to know how they were doing on their AI efforts. This was a huge contact center. Think one of the largest banks in the world, over 1 billion contacts per year. And all the metrics I showed you earlier that are unique to AI, this page here, as well as this page here, same metrics, are the ones that are shown in this table. So if we look at cost per customer per month, on average, it was $14.55, meaning that what is the cost of delivering contact center service per customer per month? So you take the total cost of their contact centers, divide it by all their retail customers, and the amount was $14.55. The minimum in their benchmarking peer group was $7.20, and the maximum was $22.93. The top quartile, which is how you set performance targets, you always want to be in the top quartile, was $9.44. So it wasn't the lowest, but it was between the average and the lowest. The top quartile is always going to be between the average and the best performer. So cost per dollar of sale, top quartile is less than 1%, 0.92% of unit sales being spent on customer support. So less than 1% being spent on customer support. The high number here was 3.7%. The low number was 0.56%. Contacts per user per month. Top quartile, what you want to shoot for, 0.76 contacts per user per month. The low was 0.49. The high was 4.21. Now, agent-assisted contacts avoided. I set the baseline at 100,000 contacts per month. They were driving 37% of their volume through the agentless channel. So 37% of 100,000 is 37,000. 12% was the average. So 37% was top quartile. 12% was the average. 0% was the minimum, meaning that others in their industry had not done anything with agentless channels. So naturally, they had nothing going through the agentless channels. And then the maximum was almost 78% going through the live voice, live chat channels. So almost 80% going through those channels, which, you don't want to see a number that high. You want as much as possible going through the agentless channels, not through the live voice, live chat channels. So you'll notice the congruency of the agent-assisted contacts avoided. Again, I set the baseline at 100,000, and the agentless resolution rate, the percentages match when you multiply that against 100,000. And then for live voice, live chat, which you're trying to minimize, top quartile would be 47.5%. The worst case scenario was almost 78% going through those live channels. Email web submit, top quartile would be 0. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of zeros in this particular data set. So top quartile would be nothing being submitted through email and web submit. Voice bot, chat bot, web bot, self-help, 55.2%. Zero touch containment rate, same thing, 55%. So when you think of voice bots, chat bots, and self-help, at least for this particular benchmark, the containment rate for zero touch is the same as the voice bot, chat bot, help bot percentage. So you'll see those numbers exactly the same there. CSAT, top quartile, 88.9%. The lowest was only 47%. FCR, top quartile, 93.2%. Average was only 84.6%. Your NPS, top quartile, 65.1%. The highest was 81%. The lowest was negative 47.2% because, as you know, on NPS, you can range from 100% to negative 100%. Mean time to respond, top quartile, 31 seconds. And that's, by the way, for the live channels of live voice and live chat. Mean time to resolve for all channels, 41 minutes. You can see that the high number there is 846 minutes, quite a lengthy time to resolve. That's more than a full working day. Average was 107 minutes. The minimum was 19 minutes. And then the technology return on investment, top quartile was 241%. The highest was almost 1,000%, meaning a 10x return on the technology of investment in year one. The minimum was negative 66%, meaning that the investment in a particular technology lost money. And then the average is about 54%, which is a pretty good return on investment. Keep in mind that your voice and chatbots are proven technologies, and they're pretty easy to cost justify. The unproven technologies, at least in my mind so far, are the machine learning tools, which are not quite ready for prime time. These are the tools that teach themselves to get smarter over time. Voice and chatbots are generally not ML tools. They are generally rules-based tools the rules are created by humans. They just execute them more quickly, so they can act faster than humans, and they do so without emotion, and they do so the same way every time. So you get more consistency, you get more speed, but they are based on human programmed rules. Channel mix metrics have become critically important in the era of AI and contact centers. This came from the same benchmark that I just spoke of. Our clients' channel mix is shown on the far left. These are called Sankey diagrams. But essentially what it shows is the migration from one mix to another. So on the far left is our client's current channel mix. They're 44.6% voice, 18.4% chat. Self-help is 12.8%. We have 8.9% web submit, 12.1%. Email submit, walk-up is 1%. Chatbot is 2.5%. To get to the average voice mix, they'd be at 36.4% voice, 15.2% chat from 18.4%. For voice bot, they would be at 11.8% from current voice bot was 0. Or self-help, self-service, they'd be at 8.5%, and so on. So you have the average. On the left-hand side, you have the average where the orange bars are. You have the client's current mix on the left-hand side. Now to get to top quartile, the right-hand chart shows, once again, our client's current channel mix on the left-hand side and the top quartile channel mix on the right-hand side. So the top quartile channel mix for voice chats, voice bots, and chat bots would be 30% for the voice bot, 20.2% for the chat bot, or 50.2% for voice and chat bots combined. So they went from 44.6% voice to 27.8% voice. On chat, they went from 18.3%, this is live chat, to 9.4%. VoiceBot went from 0% to 30%. Chatbot went from 2.5% to 20.2%. So again, 50.2% total VoiceBot and Chatbot. Walk-up is a good channel if you're co-located with your customers. It's good for PR, but you don't want that number to be higher than 5% because it's a very expensive channel. Self-help went to 5%, and then web, meaning web submitted, dropped from 8.9% to 2.7%. So top quartile on the far right of the right-hand diagram, average industry on the right-hand side of the left-hand diagram, and our client's current channel mix was shown on the left of both of these two diagrams. So think about your channel mix and how you're going to migrate over time to the agentless channels, self-help, voice bots, chat bots, and eventually, when the technology is mature, the machine learning tools. This particular example is from a global retailer who set about to drive volume into self-help, self-service, and their voice and chat bots. Here's what happened. Year 0 was starting point. 24 months later, far right-hand column. So you can see how their agent-assisted contacts per month went from 61,500 down to 30,000 in 24 months. Their customer base did increase during this period of time from 55,000 to 57, almost 58,000. Their knowledge management improved, which helps self-help, self-service. So we see the volume of self-help, self-service contacts going from 0 to 4,400 per month. Chat and voice bots going from 0 to 6,000 per month. AI machine learning, they actually did find an AI tool that was specific to their industry that worked for them, went from 0 to 17,000 contacts handled per month. And if we look at the agent-assisted contacts per customer per month, that was 1.11 at the beginning of the study, at the beginning of this initiative. It dropped all the way to 0.51 agent-assisted contacts per customer per month. So a massive reduction in cost, a massive increase in automation, containment through ML, voice bots, chat bots, and self-help, self-service. And we can see the graphics on this. Dark blue represent the dark blue bars, agent-assisted contacts over 24 months. The green line represents agent-assisted contacts per customer per month. So it's kind of it follows the blue bars because the blue bars are total contacts. The green line is just contacts divided by customers. So it's natural that they would tend to follow each other. Over on the right-hand side, you start to see the emergence of the orange bar, knowledge management, meaning that knowledge management was driving the adoption of self-help, self-service. And we see chat and voice bots, the yellow bar, the gray bar is self-help, self-service. This is a fairly common evolution. You don't see a whole lot of progress in the first 8 to 12 months. The blue bars are still pretty high. The green bar is still pretty high. But as the technology gains acceptance, as it gains adoption, you start to see an increase or decrease in total agent-assisted contacts and an increase in the agentless channels, self-help, self-service, and the voice and chat bots. And so that's what we're seeing. So the right-hand axis over here, agent-assisted tickets per user, agent-assisted contacts per user per month. Left-hand side is total ticket volume. So same data, just presented much more graphically. Here's what happened during this period of time. Agent-assisted ticket volume went from 61,000 to 30,000. Customers increased. Contacts per customer per month dropped dramatically. It dropped by more than 50% from 1.11 to 0.51. Customer effort improved, went from 57.1% to 85.7%. And CSAT also improved and went from 83.4 to 92.7. So this is proof that you can automate extensively, yet still see an improvement in the customer experience and specifically in customer satisfaction. So what are some of the success factors that we have learned in this process? Well, we've learned that you don't have to boil the ocean. You don't have to swallow the elephant. You can start with proven technologies, low-hanging fruit. Start with self-help, self-service. Typically, there's a big win to be had there. Voice and chat bots are proven technologies. They're relatively low cost, and they're easy to make a business case for. The ROI for these technologies is typically well above 100%. I would wait on machine learning technologies to improve, even though in one of the case studies I just showed you, there was a machine learning element to this, that ML was specific to this particular vertical market. Machine learning tools do not exist for all vertical markets yet, and it's going to be some time before that machine learning matures enough to make those investments worthwhile without being too risky. Establishing performance targets is crucial. Things like increasing your automation containment rate, things like increasing your adoption of voice and chatbots and self-help, self-service, things like reducing the number of agent-assisted contacts per user per month. You need to have performance targets for these. You need to be tracking these metrics. After all, again, the title of my presentation is the emerging metrics of AI in the contact center industry. You need to be adopting these AI-specific metrics, tracking them, and then setting performance targets equal to the top quartile, and then ultimately achieving those top quartiles. There will be some upskilling required. Many of the agents that you have now may not be able to make the transition from AI agent, AI technician, AI analyst to AI engineer. And that's the transformation that will be required. Some can do it, some won't be able to do that. So going back to a slide that I showed you earlier, 1960s General Motors, 2005 General Motors. Well, if they had lived long enough, it's not meant to be a negative comment, but if they had lived long enough, a lot of the people shown on the left probably didn't end up being engineers on the right-hand side. Not everybody made it into that automated environment. So not everybody's going to make this transition from contact center agent or analyst to contact center engineer. But if 90% of the volume is automated away over the next 10 years, which I think is a conservative estimate, attrition will take care of most of this. This is a high turnover industry. The average turnover in an enterprise contact center is almost 35% per year. In an outsourced contact center, think the big outsourcers, the number sometimes approaches 100% turnover per year. So I've never seen layoffs in this industry. I've seen downsizing through attrition, but I've never seen layoffs. So those that are committed to the industry and want to upskill to become contact center engineers and not just agents and analysts can do so, but not everyone is going to make that transformation. Again, the goal is to get to agentless resolution. I think, again, my opinion, 90% of the industry will be agentless within the next 10 years. If you think about a contact center agent or analyst, they tend to be reactive. They respond to service levels. They're looking at quick resolutions, quick return to service. They're beholden to ASA and mean time to resolve. They care about schedule adherence. And they, in North America, on average, make about $40,000 a year. Contact center engineers, where we have seen them, less than 5% of contact center agents / customer facing personnel are in fact engineers. They're not reactive at all. They're proactive, they're preventive, they're strategic. They're looking at automating resolutions. They want to eliminate contacts. They want to deflect into the agentless channels. And they think not in terms of schedule adherence, they think in terms of engineering projects that increase the agentless resolution rate. They make on average $90K a year in the United States. In a moment, I'll take questions from you. But before I do so, just in case any of you have to move on very quickly, I just want to say thank you so much for spending your time to listen to my presentation. I know there were a lot of really good presentations in this conference, and the fact that you took the time to hear my presentation, that means a lot to me. I hope you do found it to be insightful and educational, and I do hope that it helps you in your career going forward. So at this point, I will take some questions. And again, thank you so much for attending my presentation. This is Jeff Rumberg, Managing Partner of MetricNet.